I'm Bill Wilt of Assured Research. Thanks so much for joining this quick hit video where we're going to focus on one research note drawn in this case from our October 2024 Assured briefing. If you're a subscriber to our work, thank you. If you're not a subscriber and you enjoy this content, we'd encourage you to reach out and learn more about taking out a trial to our work. We're going to talk about the residual trend, and if you'll bear with me, I'm going to share my screen and we will jump right into it. Good. Hopefully you're seeing that. So the residual trend, first, what is the residual trend? The residual trend is something we introduced probably a year and a half ago. It's a broad measure to try and a broad way to try and measure social inflation. So specifically what we look at are the growth in industry losses we then remove from the growth the changes in exposure in the case of broad liability coverages, real GDP, and economic inflation. If losses are growing faster than the combination of exposure growth and economic inflation, the residual trend would be positive because losses are growing faster. There have been plenty of times in history, and we look back into the early 1970s, where the residual trend is negative, so losses are actually growing more slowly than the combination of exposure and inflation. Two things, if you draw your attention to the graph on the left, two observations, highly relevant, we think. First is that bouts of social inflation, the residual trend being strongly positive, corresponds pretty closely to known bouts of social inflation. If you look in the mid-1980s, first the mid-70s, then the mid-80s, I'm looking at the blue bars, the red bar is the liability loss and LAE ratio, the early 2000s, and then again, it turned positive kind of in the 2018 timeframe, the residual trend that is, and that corresponded to, a rise in the liability loss in the LAE ratio, more strongly, of course, in the earlier periods. The other observation, which again, very valuable, we think for underwriters, actuaries to know or observe, is it's kind of like Newton's law. Once an object's in motion, it tends to stay in motion, or at rest, stay in rest. If you look at those blue bars, once they turn positive or negative, for the most part, they tend to stay either positive or negative for a few years. Obviously, there's some variability, but the idea is if you're monitoring this, which is taken from broadly available tools, really able for anybody to kind of construct this series, which is one of the nice things about it. You can monitor this, and if you catch an inflection point or observe an inflection point, that can be very valuable, because once an inflection point happens, either positively or negatively, it tends to stay the residual trend positive or negative for some number of years. And we think it causes, or should cause, insurance professionals to begin thinking about, hey, what might have changed in the social environment, the legal environment, the corporate environment that could be causing the residual trend, i.e. social inflation, to either heat up or slow down. Let's look at the numbers. This is other and product liability combined. You see over the past, it's been strongly positive at times, and also, for different stretches, negative, and therefore very favorable. But to the current time, and the value in this research note is we looked forward to what it could be for the full year 2024. You see the residual trend began to inflect positively in around 2018, kind of at the time we started talking about social inflation. Does look like it's diminishing. The average since 2018 is about 7%. Perhaps it's demoderating. I don't know if that's a head fake yet or not, but the point is it's still positive. So from a pricing perspective, insurers need to be thinking about pricing for changes in exposure, economic inflation, and still positive to the tune of 4, 5, or 6% positive residual trend for social inflation. There you see on the right-hand side, smooths over a three-year average, and you can kind of clearly see that after the great financial crisis, the residual trend began to inflect positively. It was still negative, but becoming less negative, and became positive in and around 2018. One more line. We do 4 lines in our research note. I'll share 2 of them with you here. Commercial auto, which is really ground zero for social inflation. You see, we had hard to remember, but before the financial crisis, commercial auto liability results were really quite favorable. The residual trend was strongly negative. That changed after the financial crisis, and it really began to accelerate in the 2015-16 timeframe. And importantly, it's been 7.4% since 2018, but we forecast for 2024 it could be around 10%. So companies really need to be thinking about pricing for exposure, economic inflation, and a very healthy dose for the residual trend. There you see the trend on the right-hand side, strongly positive or rising since the great financial crisis. So that's what we have for you on the residual trend. Again, started talking about this, introducing this about 1.5 years ago. Reach out if you'd like to learn more. Thank you if you're a subscriber, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video.